On December 1st, 1997, a 14-year-old freshman boy who had been bullied for years walked into the Heath High School lobby in West Paducah, Kentucky, and randomly fired a .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol. 3 students were killed, 5 were injured. One of the critically injured girls was 15-year-old sophomore Missy Jenkins, who was left paralyzed from the chest down. But just hours after the shooting, Missy did the unthinkable. She forgave the shooter, accepted her disability, and reclaimed her life. During the next 16-plus years, Missy would graduate from college, become a counselor for troubled students, marry her college sweetheart, give birth to 2 beautiful boys, speak publicly about her life to tens of thousands of youth and adults, write an award-winning memoir, and confront the shooter face-to-face in prison. She would earn many local and national honors, from Kentuckian of the Year to one of Ladies' Home Journal's most fascinating women, and would appear on Oprah, Good Morning America, Dateline, and Anderson Cooper 360. Please join me in welcoming my friend Missy Smith.
Hi, good morning. Our scripture reading today comes from Ephesians 4:31-32, and I have it on my phone, so let me get that up. It says, "Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice, and be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you." On December the 1st, 1997, I was a sophomore in high school. I was 15 years old. And that day, on December the 1st, it fell on a Monday right after Thanksgiving break. And so just like any typical teenager, me and my twin sister were up late at night and sleeping in every day. And so waking up Monday morning was an extreme struggle for both of us. I'm definitely not a morning person either. So with my dad, who would come into our room every morning, he would come in our room, which me and my twin sister shared a bedroom. He would come into our room and he would shake and rattle our beds and sing the most annoying song. So waking up to that and not being a morning person and not getting much sleep, I was not ready for Monday morning. But I had 2 motivations into getting to school on time. One of those was that being 15 years old, and on Christmas Eve, me and my twin sister were turning 16. And so, with 16 comes your permit, comes getting a car, driving. And so we were to the point where we were over the bus. And we had a best friend who had an older sister who was a senior who had her license. And so we knew that if we didn't get ready for school in time, when she came to pick us up, she was going to leave us. So that meant riding the bus, or even worse, our dad taking us to school. So we wanted to make sure that we hurried up and got ready for that. But not only were we wanting to make sure we caught our ride, we also had been attending a prayer circle that met in the lobby of our school every morning our sophomore year. We had seen it our freshman year. We really didn't know what it was our freshman year, but once we started asking more questions about it, we found out that it was a prayer circle. And we thought, what better of a way for us to start our day off would be to pray to God every morning before school started. So we wanted to make sure that we made it to prayer circle that morning. And so one thing that I regret that morning that I really wish that I would have taken time out to do was to give my parents a hug and a kiss bye. I was too busy and too worried about getting to school that morning on time and didn't have time to hug and kiss them. So instead of doing that, me and my twin sister ran out the door and yelled, "Bye, love ya," and jumped into the car and went to school. And I really wish I would have taken that time out. So always remember that when you leave the house and leave your loved ones. That morning, I really wish I would have taken the time. But we did get to prayer circle on time. And there were probably about 30 or 40 of us that would meet in the lobby. And nothing seemed out of the ordinary whatsoever. We walked around and we talked to our friends that we hadn't seen for the past 5 days. And then we heard someone yell, "Time to pray," like they always normally did. And we got into the circle and we prayed to God. And right after we prayed and we said amen, I had just enough time to walk to the middle of the lobby. And that's when a 14-year-old boy pulled a .22 out of his backpack and started shooting at us. And at the time, I had no clue what was going on. I didn't see him with the gun, but the only thing I did see was a girl get shot and fall to the ground. And as I stood there and I stared at her, I kept thinking to myself, everything's going to be okay. This is a joke. This kind of thing doesn't happen in a school. We're going to be fine. And as I stood there, I also heard the gunshots. Not being familiar with gunshots, I had no way to even explain the noise I was hearing, except for maybe thinking that it was firecrackers. That was the only thing I could think of that it sounded like. And so as I stood there trying to figure out the entire situation, I was then shot. I had no clue where I was shot. My entire body basically went completely numb. Even my hearing kind of left, and I had a ringing in my ears. I would say that it was almost like fainting. And as I landed on the ground, even the impact of hitting the ground didn't hurt. And laying there confused, not knowing why I was on the ground, my twin sister knew what was happening. She saw the boy with the gun. She saw the very first person get shot. And she also felt a bullet actually go through her hair and rub the back of her neck. But she got on the ground, and she crawled over to me and laid over me while he was still shooting. And when he finally stopped, I could see that she was looking at something, and I had to ask her more than once. I know it was because she was in shock. I had to ask her more than once what was happening. And that's when she finally told me that there was a gun, and then she told me who did it. And at that point, I'd realized I'd been shot, but I also could not believe she was telling me that this person did what he did because he was somebody that I never thought that would ever be capable of something like this. After realizing I'd been shot, I was wearing a black shirt, so we both couldn't see any blood. We didn't know where I was shot still. But the very first thing I noticed was that I couldn't feel my stomach. And it scared us both. We didn't know what that meant, but I can only say that at that time, I felt fine. We then looked to our right and we saw a friend of ours who was walking around, and she was holding her left shoulder like this, and she was crying. And my twin sister told me, she said, "Be strong, don't die. I'll be back to check on you." And so she left me and checked on our friend, but at that point my twin sister became extremely overwhelmed over the situation. And I told her if she needed to leave the lobby, that it was fine. And even though she regretted leaving me, it was actually a good thing that she did, because as she left the lobby, she went towards the gym where they were taking all the other kids from the classes. And she went into the gym with, which also, the odd thing was is that she also ran into the friend that we'd ridden to school with that morning. And she went into the gym's lobby, and there was a payphone. And so again, this is 97. There was cell phones existed, but we didn't carry them like kids do today. So this payphone was going to be the only way that my sister would be able to reach out to anybody outside the school. And so she picked it up and she called my mom. And my mom, of course, once she heard the news from my sister, could not believe what she was hearing. But the good thing was is that my sister was able to offer this information to my parents without anyone else telling them or them hearing it on television. So them being able to hear that I was still talking when my sister left me gave them some type of comfort. My mom, who had osteoporosis and crippling arthritis at the time, only by God's grace was able to jump up out of bed and run to the front door to let my dad know what was happening. And then my dad and my mom at that point had to form a plan as to what to do, and they had no clue what hospital I would end up at. With Paducah having Lourdes and Western Baptist, the plan was to basically drive back and forth to each hospital and to try to find me. And then we had an older sister that lived at home at the time that was attending the community college, and she went to the school to find my twin sister. And when she got to the school, she said that the entire school outside was just complete mass chaos. And at that point, my twin sister said that once parents were coming and trying to pick up their kids, a lot of the kids were coming out of the school and just kind of wandering in the parking lot. And as my sister did that, she said a lot of people were grabbing her and asking her if this person was okay or if that person was okay. And she ran into one person in particular that she knew, but was also the sister of the person that everyone saw get shot. And the girl asked my twin sister, "I can't find my sister. I don't know where she is. I know you were at prayer circle. Do you know where she is?" And my sister did. My sister knew where she was. And she also knew that the girl, her sister, did not make it. sister didn't have the ability to tell her that she knew that her sister was dead. So the only thing that she could tell her was that your sister was shot, and mine was too. You need to call your parents. And so she left her and then ran right into my sister, and the entire crazy crowd found my older sister, and they both got into the car and did exactly what my mom and my dad were doing, which was driving back and forth to each hospital. But while that was happening with my twin sister, I was still in the lobby, and I was confused and wondering what was going to happen to me. And my algebra teacher that I had that year knelt down beside me, and she began to pray. And at that point, that's when I started to question whether I was going to live or if I was going to die. And I asked my teacher if I was going to die. And she said, no, you're not going to die. You're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. And then I told her, I can't feel my stomach. I can't move my legs. I know I'm paralyzed. And she said, no, you're not paralyzed. You're just in shock. You're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. But I think she did know. I think she just was trying to keep me from going into shock, but then also it was hard for her to tell a 15-year-old girl that, yes, this is exactly what's happening to you. But after my teacher prayed for me, I started to get very tired, and I really think that it was because of loss of blood, and I wanted to close my eyes. And my teacher kept telling me, don't close your eyes, keep your eyes open, don't close them. But it got to the point where I couldn't fight it anymore, and I closed my eyes. And I don't know how long I was out, but when I woke back up, I looked next to me, and there was a girl laying down that I didn't notice before. But my chemistry teacher was holding her, and my algebra teacher was saying over and over again, she's not going to make it, she's not going to make it. And I remember seeing the girl roll all over the ground and moan. And I basically watched this until the ambulances came to get us. And when they finally came, they started putting the most seriously injured in the ambulances first, and then they put me in one where they were giving someone CPR, and at the time I didn't know who the person was, but I later on found out. They brought me to the emergency room, and they quickly started giving me IVs. I had an IV that was giving me blood, I had another one that was giving me fluids, and then I had a chest tube in my side, on my left side. And then they also started performing tests, and they would take a needle and they would poke me, and they would ask me to move my legs and move my feet. And of course, I couldn't feel the pokes, and I couldn't move my legs. And that's when they then confirmed to me that I was paralyzed. And you would think that any normal person being told something like this, being told that they're possibly paralyzed for the rest of their lives, would be very devastated and very upset. But I was oddly okay with it. And I thought to myself, you're crazy. Why are you feeling this way? Why are you okay with this? They're telling you that you're possibly paralyzed for the rest of your life, and why are you okay with this? So I tried to make myself cry because I thought I looked crazy for not crying. And then I realized I was a very bad actress, and I didn't need to continue the act. And so I stopped myself. But once I got into the x-ray, I then realized how truly blessed I was to still be alive. They actually thought that I was shot twice because there was an entrance wound over here to my left, and then the exit wound was over here to my right. But because it was a .22 when it entered my left shoulder, it bounced around my body and missed every major artery and organ inside my body besides my lung and my spinal cord, and came out the right side of my back. And once they were trying to find the bullet, they saw it in the x-ray but couldn't find it, and realized that the bullet had exited my back but didn't even go through the back of my shirt, because they shook my shirt and the bullet fell out during the x-ray. And they picked it up off the ground and they showed me the bullet. And I couldn't believe that that had passed through my body. And then I also started thinking about how my heart is right here, and it completely missed my heart. And that's when I knew that God had blessed me with a second chance at my life. I remember from the time that my teacher was praying for me, and when I had passed out, when I woke up, I knew that I was going to be okay. I know at that point, from the time that my teacher was praying for me, when I was in the emergency room learning that I was paralyzed for the rest of my life possibly, to finding out how blessed I was to be alive, I knew that God was with me every step of the way. I just knew it because at that point, being able to handle everything that I was being given at that point, it was only because of God being there. And after being in the x-ray, I then was put into the ICU. And that's when I found out that 3 girls were killed and 5 people were injured. After finding out what happened that morning, I also started thinking about the person that did this. The person was only 14 years old. His name was Michael, and he was somebody that I considered a friend. He was somebody that you would label as the class clown, always trying to be funny, always trying to make people laugh. And I loved being around him. I could honestly say that he was somebody that I kind of even wanted to be more like, because I would say that I was shy then, definitely would not be in front of a group of people right now back then to speak. And so he was always wild and crazy, and I thought, wow, I would love to be like that. And then even when people said mean and nasty things to him, to make fun of him, to bully him, he would always act like it wasn't a big deal and that he didn't care and that it wasn't a big deal. But the thing was is that little do we know how much he did care. He held everything inside and didn't ask anyone for help until it was the point where he thought that if he brought a gun to school, that people would actually fear him and respect him and leave him alone. But the only thing that it did is that he is now in jail 25 years to life. He was 14 when he did this. On June the 1st of this year, he will be 32. And he will be there for the rest of his life because of this decision. Instead of asking someone for help because of what he was going through and confiding in someone and talking about it, he chose to do this and now is in jail for the rest of his life and has changed his life and has changed others' lives as well. Not only was bullying a problem that he went through, but he also had warned people that something big was going to happen. And that's something that I always do. I always hit hard about bullying whenever I go to schools and tell people that it's so important not to be a bystander, for kids to understand that it's not okay to sit and watch this. You know, God loves us all. We're all different, but we all have something that is the same inside, is that we have feelings. And when people say mean and nasty things to us, it hurts no matter how much we put up a front and act like it doesn't hurt us, because it hurt Michael even though he did that. But then, like I said, he did warn people that something big was going to happen. He brought the gun to school even 2 weeks before it happened. He pulled it out on 2 boys in the instrument room that was in the band room, and the 2 boys laughed at him and said, "Oh, that's just a .22 that won't do anything to anybody." And so he chose that gun. There were so many lessons that I learned from that day, but another lesson that I had to learn was also to live my life in a wheelchair. I spent 5 months in the hospital learning how to sit up again, which was an extreme struggle. I knew that God was with me every moment, but I think at that moment right there, I was to the point where I thought that I was going to live my life in the bed. I wasn't going to get up, because at that point I started thinking to myself, this is too hard. But I had so much motivation that I know that God brought to me. One of those was my mom and my dad. They sat with me every single day and was with me through everything. They went everywhere with me, my entire family. Anytime I had to move somewhere or go somewhere, they would follow me, and they would do anything for me, and that's exactly what my mom and dad did. My mom and dad since then have passed, and I want to thank you all too for the prayers for the recent passing of my dad on January the 13th. But I know that my parents are still there watching over me. But God sent them to me to be a huge rock in my life and to help me during that time. And my twin sister was absolutely awesome. She was there with me every single day. She would bring friends to visit, and we would have sleepovers during the weekend, even though she would steal the friends and go to the cafeteria sometimes and leave me in the room. But that's okay. I don't hold it against her. But she did do that. And then I also, you look at the world and you think that there is so much bad in it because it seems like that's what you see on TV all the time. But I, every single day for months, received letters after letters from all over the world. In one day, and this was every day, I would receive 600 letters and 45 packages. I had so much mail in my room that we didn't know what to do with it. But the only thing that we could do was that my mom would sit beside my bed and she would open up every letter and she would read it to me. And in every letter, there were so many people that were saying, we're praying for you. We know you can do this. You're going to get back on your feet one day. So many prayers. And I kept thinking to myself, here I am feeling sorry for myself and saying that I can't do this. And there's people all over the world that are writing me letters that don't even know me, that are praying for me, even people that couldn't even write a bit of English, but I'm praying for you, and the rest of it in their foreign language. And I thought to myself, if they took the time out to do this for me, I need to do something for myself and try. And I know God brought all those people to me. And I still have those letters. And in times whenever I feel kind of, I read them. And before my parents passed, they kept them in their garage. And they were like, Missy, when are you going to come get these? Because I don't even have the heart to get rid of them. So I do have garbage bags and garbage bags full of mail still with me. But that was so much motivation that I did end up sitting up again. And then I was able to start learning how to use my wheelchair. After being in Lourdes, I then went to Cardinal Hill in Lexington, Kentucky, where I learned how to do so much. When I first got there, I saw a big, beautiful room, and it had 2 beds in it. And I thought, this is going to be awesome because this bed right here is going to be for me, and this one is going to be my twin sister's bed, and it's going to be perfect. And then they told me that she couldn't stay with me, and I cried because I'd never been alone before. And then I turned the TV on, and there was only 3 channels. And so I cried harder because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not even going to have television. I can't have my twin sister, and now I can't have TV. And then they said they were going to wake me up at 6 in the morning. And then I thought, they're going to torture me. This is going to be boot camp. This is going to be horrible. But I didn't realize that they were trying to make me independent. And so I learned so much from there. I even learned how to do wheelies, which are actually a fun thing. There is a purpose for it, but it's also fun. Anytime I go to schools, I always show my wheelie trick, and I even do circles because I learned how to do that too. It looks very dangerous and could be dangerous if you're not a pro like I am. So, but that is my only trick, so I'm very, very proud of that. But after being in the hospital, I then went back to my school, and I was scared because I was going back in a wheelchair and also going back to where it happened. But once I got into school, I went back to prayer circle. I went back to the same place I stood that morning, and I felt like I got back to my life and that I was able to beat it. But as time went on, I was blessed to be able to go to a camp where I learned how to water ski, jet ski, ride a horse, climb a tree. I can honestly sit up here and tell you that I've done more in a wheelchair than I ever did walking. And I was blessed to do those things, but one of those things that I will never do again is water ski. It was very scary because they lock you in the sit ski and they pull you by a boat. And remember, I said you're locked in it, okay? And so they pull you by a boat, and as you're being pulled, they have this other boat that rides beside you with divers. And so if you go underwater and you're stuck to this thing, they have these divers that dive in and fish you out. And it was very scary. So I thank the camp for letting me do that, but I will never do that again. That was very scary. And the only reason why I did do it is because the Today Show was there, and I didn't want to look like a big wuss in not doing it. So I did it, but I was blessed to get that chance, but I will never do it again. It was very scary. But after the camp, I then continued on with my junior year. And then on December the 16th, 1998, I got an opportunity to actually stand in front of Michael and talk to him. All of the family members and the victims of the family members were able to get up and speak to him. And a lot of people were yelling at him. And I completely understand that people heal and deal with things in different ways. But I knew that if I got up and I screamed and yelled at him, he would not listen to me. I know when people scream and yell at me, I don't want to listen. So I talked to him like I'm talking to you. When I got up, so a lot of times he would just look at the table. He wouldn't look at anyone. And the first thing I said was, Michael, you can look at me if you want to. And he did. And then I said, Michael, there are some things that have changed in my life. Some things that were embarrassing that I never knew that I had to do at the age of 16. And some things that changed in my life that I could still do, but I would have to do a different way. But I told him that even though he had done this to me, I had forgiven him for what he had done. And the reason why I forgave him is because I knew that being angry and mad at him was not going to make me walk again. It wasn't going to bring the girls back that died that morning. And it wasn't going to change what happened. And I didn't want to live the rest of my life angry. I was blessed by God giving me that second chance at a life. Do I want my second chance to be angry? I didn't. I wanted to be happy. I've always been a happy person. And I didn't want that anger and that hatred in my heart because it was not going to do anything for me. I know that sometimes a lot of people have trouble forgiving. And I think it's because they think that they let that person off. But the thing is that I let myself off that day. If I was to continue to be angry, I really think that I would let December the 1st, 1997 control me for the rest of my life. I might have been out of control that morning and couldn't have controlled what happened to me, but I wanted to be in control of my life after that. So I forgave him and I moved on. And yes, I still believe that he has to deal with the consequences of his actions because he killed 3 girls and injured 5 people and changed the community and the surrounding communities. But I don't have to live with that anger in my life for the rest of my life. So I forgave him. And because I forgave him, I'm so much more of a happier person. It's a choice whenever you are going through something. I'm not saying it's going to be easy to make that choice, but once you make that choice and you choose to be happy and you choose to forgive and you choose to move on with your life, you're so much more of a happier person because that's how I have felt. I'm not saying that I don't have bad days still, but I know that I can pray to God and ask him to help me through those hard times because we all go through hard times. But because I chose to be happy, I was blessed with a wonderful husband. I'm blessed with 2 beautiful boys, and I had the ability to get pregnant and have children. That was something I never knew that I could do, being in a wheelchair. And I was blessed with a wonderful job, and I can honestly sit up here and tell you that I am happy with my life. God has blessed me. I may not be walking, but I am truly blessed. So it is a choice that you have to make. And I've learned so much from what I've been through. And I can only hope that others learn from what I've been through. And then maybe it can become a positive thing. I think that God blessed me with this ability to speak. Like I said, I would never get up in front of a group like this. I was scared to death. And now, all of a sudden, I have the ability to. I can get up in front of a group and sit and talk, and it just comes out of my mouth, and I know it's God doing it. And so I want to thank you for listening to me this morning because it honestly helps me. And in return, I hope it helps you because I know that one day I'll walk again. It may not be 10 years from now, and it may not be 20 years from now. But if it's not in this lifetime, I know that I'll walk in heaven and I'll be okay.